Hey everybody, Mike Pfeiffer with Pfeiffer Hobby Supply. Today we're going to do the ACT3 update, what is it, 79? And I hope you enjoy it. It's going to be really short. And I promise really short this time. I always say that, but I promise really short. I'm not going to think of anything else, okay, after the video's over. I know, you don't believe that, right? Well, let's get into this. Okay, everybody, this is why it's going to be so short, because I've done everything already. But anyways, yeah, I wound up cutting up a dock scene, and I got, as you can see, part of the dock scene over here with some boats in it. I'm going to paint the boats out in some manner, or put foliage on them, or over them, or buildings up next to them, or whatever. But anyway, I'm going to get rid of the boats. Got rid of most of the boats already. You can see that part of the... what is that? That's the industrial district or something. Anyway, I used part of it over there. Then I used the city backdrop. These are all instant horizons. Brought it around over to the tunnel portal. Then I used the other part of the industrial scene to come right up to the edge of this opening, and then took it down there and then mounted the back, just the back portion, or the end portion of it, I should say, on a piece of foam core, and then just bent it around that corner and then hot glued it in place to kind of disguise the tunnel portal there. Now you got to keep in mind that there will be a building in front of that as well. The fertilizer plant will be directly in front of that, that is going to be serviced by the track there in the middle. You can also see that I got all the foam built up, and I have put one layer of plaster cloth over the whole thing. It is now pretty rigid. Got all the holes patched up. And I know that some of you are going to ask, if I have any electrical problems, I'll have to dig into that. I have not done any of the electrical stuff down below, but it all worked before I moved it, so it ought to all work now. We're going to take for granted that it will, and before I go too crazy with scenery, obviously that will have to be checked out. Let me swing the camera on around here, and I'll go in a little more depth as to how I do this. And here is another part of the, I think that's another part of the industrial area. And then it just stops over here, and I think I'm just going to leave it stopped. I don't want to go too crazy with stuff down the wall here. Let me swing back around slowly. I do have things to paint on this backdrop, things that are irritating, like why isn't the cloud in the blue part right here? So I'm going to paint in white, some white there. I have antennas, walkways, all kinds of stuff to color back in with either pencil or Sharpie. Telephone poles, such as right here, I will put that back in with a Sharpie. There's a lot of things that I'll put back in with a Sharpie. There's some, I don't know, on the regular backdrops, I don't know as I'll paint anything out or cut anything more off. Let me swing back around here and I'll show you something else. Okay, back in here you can see that I've got to add smoke. There's some chimneys in the background that also need smoke. I took 2 of the large chimneys out right there. I thought it was a little overwhelming with a whole dozen chimneys there. Anyway, you can barely see the edge of the opening in the fascia there, or not the fascia, opening in the backdrop, going out into the garage. I'm not sure what I'm going to do here. I'm going to maybe build a structure over here like a signal arm or something. I don't know exactly what it'll be, but there'll be something there. Anyway, and you can see that on some of these, when I cut these out, there's smoke going across on the buildings. I have to tie in those smoke trails going to their appropriate stacks, put a stack on top of this brown building right here, and then make the smoke going out. There's just different things you have to do when you cut these things apart. Different things you have to paint back in and take out, and things you want to paint out. Now, I talked about it before, but I have cut about 2 inches off the bottom of all of these, including this one over here. Um, just to lower them down. They need to be lowered down so they just don't look overwhelming to the N-scale buildings in the foreground, which I do not know what those buildings will be, but I will start putting some in there. I'm going to try and use some of the buildings that I had, some of the things that I had off the old layout. I'm not sure exactly what I'll be able to use, but that's immaterial right now. Aside from that, what I want to tell you is kind of how I get it stuck up there. So let me stop this and I'll start it again and I'll show you. Okay, as you can see, and as I was explaining, you can cut this out. I cut a lot of the detail out of the top of it. You have to cut a lot of the detail out of it because you just can't get it glued down once you get it up there. And I wanted to change the shape of some of the buildings. So for instance, this tower right here, I cut the top of it off instead of making it pointed at the top. I cut a lot of the pointed ones off. The only pointed ones you see are the one right back there and the one over here. I'm not too big on the big city pointy buildings. There's a couple on there, but nevertheless, this is supposed to look like a smaller downtown, a smaller city downtown. By the way, too, on the clouds, I've said it before, but we'll go over the clouds real quick. The clouds, all I did was tear a piece of cardboard, and I got I had some testers, flat white spray paint, and I just held the cardboard up there at different angles and just sprayed right at the edge of the cardboard, holding the cardboard about 1/4 of an inch away from the backdrop. And as you can see, for the most part, it turned out pretty well. It's good enough for me. And I worked that all the way around to where the cars are over here. But it's that simple. And then you just mist in a little, just a little bit of paint down underneath the cloud. Since we're not seeing the bottoms of the cloud, you don't see it here. But that's how I've done all the clouds in here. I don't think I'm going to bother shading any of those. We're gonna pretend like it's a nice bright sunny day in our city. So we don't have any darkness under the clouds going on. Everything's puffy and good. So anyway, let me explain to you how I put those backdrops up there. Once I cut them all out with a razor blade, get rid of all the original sky that I possibly can, I turned them over. What I did is I laid some newspaper up here. Before I had the plaster cloth on, I had just foam, but I laid the newspaper up there. And then I take them and I turn them face down, and I use this stuff. Let me see if I can get it here where you can read it. It's called Mini Graphics Wallpaper Mucilage. This is used for dollhouse wallpaper. It is also used for putting backdrops on model railroads. It's made by a company called Mini Graphics. We haven't figured out how to buy this stuff yet because mainly it's only dollhouse places that sell it, but I'm going to look into it again. But Mini Graphics sells dollhouse wallpaper, and this is their glue, and it's called a mucilage. And let me open it up and I'll show you what it looks like. Okay, I'm going to tip it up here, and if it starts to run out, I'm going to tip it back. You can see that it kind of looks like kind of thick slime. If I turn it up like this, you can get the consistency of it. It has, as you can see, it has silicone in it, and it's water-based, which tells me it has some latex in it probably. It's water-based. Anyway, I make sure and look at the backs of all these when I'm putting this on with a brush, about a 1-inch brush. I'm putting it on the back side of all this. I don't worry too much about getting an even coat along the bottoms because they're going to stick anyway. What I really do is I drag the brush up like this. Like if this was the back side, I drag the brush like this up all the edge up here to make sure I get all the edge, okay? And once the whole back side of a piece is covered and I've got it situated, or I know approximately where it's going to go, the way I based this one, this big one here, I knew I wanted the end of it right over at the tunnel portal there. So I went ahead and glued it all up, had cut it off already, got the end started over there, started working it around that corner, and to make sure that it was level this way, because you got to have it level or it'll get puckers in it. And then I have a wet sponge handy, and I start just gently, and a wrung out sponge, by the way, not much water in it at all. I just start sponging up. You could use a roller, you could use a squeegee, you could use just about anything, but I prefer a sponge. If you don't rub it too much, it won't ruin the paper, but I just keep rubbing it up, keep bringing it around and sticking it. Now, if you get it where you don't want it, this stuff dry, it takes a while for it to dry, so you can pull it off, you can kind of rearrange it, you can stick it back down. And if you have enough of the mucilage on the back, you can actually slide it up and down until you get it where you want it. Then you can work the puckers out of it, whatever you need to do. It's pretty forgiving. That's why I like using it. If you use something like a 3M spray adhesive, once you touch it to the backdrop, it's a done deal. You're where you're at. This stuff, you can move it around, and that's why I like using it. And it'll stay there forever. My other backdrops all were done years and years and years and years and years and years ago. So it'll stay there. If you get some parts along the top here, say they want to curl and they don't want to stay, just pull them down a little bit. As long as you don't rip the paper, just pull it down a little bit. Just take a little tiny brush, put some of that mucilage on the piece you're trying to stick it back up there. And don't worry about glue squishing out the top, by the way, because since it's water soluble and you're using a sponge, you're wiping that excess glue off as you go. If there's too much glue on the sponge, you can rinse it out and come back and do it. You got all the time in the world, so there's no reason you can't keep everything clean. So anyway, the Mini Graphics wallpaper paste is what I use to put it up there. Used to be a brand called Millie's. I haven't seen that in a while, but the Mini Graphics mucilage works good. I don't know what a substitute for that would be, so don't bother asking me because I have no idea. In fact, I can see a place right over. I'm sure you can't see it on camera, maybe, but that middle stack right there is curling over at the top. So I'm gonna have to go back there and put a little bit on there and attach that down. Like I say, things I have to touch up. Want to put some birds up in the sky, some different things. That's probably what I'll work on today. And other than that, I've already showed you that I have the plaster cloth down. Now it's just a matter of getting the backdrop finished, touching all that stuff up, and then figuring out what kind of buildings I want for here. So, gang, that's about it for today, and it's as short as I could possibly make it. And I got some stuff hung on the wall, obviously, back there in the back where I don't need to get to later. So anyway, we'll talk to you later, and I hope you liked it. Well, everybody, there you have it, update 79. And as I promised, it was just short, but a lot of progress made. I mean, visually, a lot of progress made. Actually, a lot of progress made in general. And anyway, I hope you enjoyed it, and thanks for watching.